morning pulls the curtains back with iron hands. A stack of letters turning gray upon the stand. The coffee scouts the silence of a hollow room, while winter flowers shed their final dusky bloom. I used to keep the shadows tucked beneath the bed, to hide the heavy sentences we never said. But now the air is thinning out across the floor, and I can't find the reason to defend the door. The anchor line is fraying at the salt and bone. A different kind of gravity has made it known. Staying as a debt I can no longer pay. The sky is wide and bleeding into shades of clay. Yeah, letting go like feathers in a gale. The ship is leaving even as the colors pale. I am dropping every stone I used to hold, before the grip of summer turns to bitter cold. I'm clenching every knuckle from the jagged ledge, walking past the fever at the water's edge. I surrender what was never mine to keep, and wake from secrets that I buried in my sleep. The map is blank where we once traced our frantic lines. A forest grown from all the broken highway signs. I leave the heavy coat of worry on the rail, and watch the vapor trail begin to thin and fail. There is a grace in watching bridges burn to ash, without the fear of seeing every timber crash. I used to think the end was just a jagged cliff, but now it's just a motion, fluid, smooth and stiff. The anchor line is fraying at the salt and bone. A different kind of gravity is hated known. The staying is a debt I can no longer pay. The sky is white and bleeding into shades of clay. Letting go like feathers in a gale. The ship is leaving even as the colors pale. I am dropping every stone I used to hold, before the grip of summer turns to bitter cold. I'm clenching every knuckle from the jagged ledge, walking past the fever at the water's edge. I surrender what was never mine to keep, and wake from secrets that I buried in my sleep. It's not a defeat to lay the armor down, to walk away from gems within a heavy crown. The open palm is stronger than the iron fist. The truth is waiting somewhere underneath the mist. I am not falling. I am finally untied, with nothing left to swallow and nothing left to hide. Letting go like feathers in a gale. The ship is leaving even as the colors pale. I am dropping every stone I used to hold, before the grip of summer turns to bitter cold. I'm clenching every knuckle from a jagged ledge, walking past the fever at the water's edge. I surrender what was never mine to keep, and wake from secrets that I buried in my sleep. Letting go like feathers in a gale. The ship is leaving even as the colors fail. I am dropping every stone I used to hold, before the grip of summer turns to bitter cold. I'm clenching every knuckle from the jagged ledge, walking past the fever at the water's edge. I surrender what was never mine to keep, and wake from secrets that I buried in my sleep. Whoa. Dust has settled on the highway side, beyond the jagged edge of the county line. A rusty gate swings in the quiet heat, where the shadows and the gravel meet. The prophets left their shadows on the wall, waiting for the heavy rain to fall. No more thunder in the upper room, just the folding of a tired loom. The static on the wire finally died. There is nowhere left for the wind to hide. A heavy stillness in the hollow bone, like a king who walked away from a throne. It is a white flag buried in the mud. It is a slow wind of the fevered blood. A landscape painted in a single shade. The end of every debt that was ever paid. The silence is a steady hand, stretching out across the broken land. The bells are hanging by a braid rope. They gave up on the heavy trade of hope. A golden watch lying in the sand, telling time to an empty hand. The soldiers swapped their jackets for the plow. There is no use for the shouting now. The iron turns to a deep red rust as the heavy boots dissolve to dust. The static on the wire finally died. There is nowhere left for the wind to hide. A heavy stillness in the hollow bone, like a king who walked away from the throne. It is a white flag buried in the mud. It is a slow wind of the fevered blood. A landscape painted in a single shade. The end of every debt that was ever paid. The silence is a steady hand, scratching out across the broken land. It is a white flag buried in the mud. It is a slow wind of the seabird blood. A landscape painted in a single shade. The end of every debt that was ever paid. The silence is a steady hand, stretching out across the broken land. The dust has settled on the broken fence. The mercury is dropping in the heat of self-defense. I saw a shadow walking on the frozen lake with a heavy bag of every promise he could break. The wind is shaking the last apple from the limb. The horizon line is looking thin and dim. The prophets are sleeping in the back of a rusted car, counting the distance to a long-forgotten star. The sirens have gone weary of their own refrain, drying their clothes in the aftermath of rain. No one is shouting for the king or for the thief. Every heartbeat is finding its own relief. There is a stillness that the noise could never own, a seat of quiet in a field of jagged stone. It is the breathing of a world without a name, the end of the hunger and the dying of the flame. It is a heavy coat for a cold and weary mind, leaving the jagged edges of the war behind. The ledger is balanced and the ink is finally dry. The hawks have stopped circling the empty morning sky. A widow is planting her garden by the gate. She is not looking for the turning hand of fate. The iron is cooling in the blacksmith's lonely shed. The ghosts are finally resting in their unmade bed. I met a soldier who forgot his heavy boots. He was digging in the dirt for some bitter winter roots. He said the silence was the loudest thing he heard, more honest than a sermon or a politician's word. The flags are all faded to a simple shade of gray beneath the steady closing of another honest day. There is a stillness that the noise could drown, a seed of quiet in a field of jagged stone. It is the breathing of a world without a name, the end of the hunger and the dying of the flame. It is a heavy coat for a cold and weary mind, leaving the jagged edges of the war behind. It does not come with a trumpet or a grand parade. It is not bought with the riches that the merchants made. It is the gap between the lightning and the sound, the holy mercy of a common solid gown. It is the mercy that we never thought we deserved, the final secret that the universe preserved. There is a stillness that the noise could now, a seat of quiet, that field of jagged stone. It is the breathing of a world without a name, the end of the hunger and the dying is the flame. It is a heavy coat for a cold and weary mind, leaving the jagged edges of the war behind. There's a stillness that the noise could know, a seat of quiet in a field of jagged stone. It is the beating of a world without a name, the end of the hunger and the dying is the flame. It is a heavy coat for a cold and weary mind, leaving the jagged edges of the war behind. The dust has settled on the broken clay. No more frantic searching for a place to stay. The iron bells have lost their heavy tone. A song of stillness finally being sung. The shadows fold their hands across the chest. The wild blood finds its way to silent rest. I walk the miles where the wire used to bleed, through hollow fields that choked on bitter seed. The ghosts of anger pack their heavy bags, leaving nothing but some faded linen rags. The horizon stopped its trembling at the edge. A sparrow landed on the window ledge. No flags are waving in the frozen air, just the sudden weight of knowing nothing's there. The dust has settled on the broken clay. No more frantic searching for a place to stay. The iron bells have lost their heavy tone. A song of stillness finally being sung. The shadows fold their hands across the chest. The wild blood finds its way to silent rest. The prophets went to sleep beneath the hill. The silver watch decided to stand still. We burned the maps that led to nowhere fast. The future started looking like the past. There's a comfort in the absence of the road, a simple latch upon the heavy door. The water in the basin doesn't move. There is no longer anything to prove. The dust has settled on the broken clay. No more frantic searching for a place to stay. The iron bells have lost their heavy tone. A song of stillness finally being sung. The shadows fold their hands across the chest. The wild blood finds its way to silent rest. Searching for a place to stay. The iron bells have lost their heavy calm. A song of stillness finally being sung. The shadows fold their hands across the chest. The wild blood finds its way to silent rest. The dust has settled on the broken fence. The silence grows where the shouting used to be. I walk the line of common sense to find a clearing through the debris. The iron gates are wide and cold. The shadows retreat to the edge of the town. Nothing remains to be bought or sold. The heavy curtains are coming down. I saw the white flag in a child's hand, drawing circles in the cooling sand. No more thunder from the distant hills, no more fever in the morning chills. The river flows without a sound, carrying the weight of the years away. Missing pieces have all been found in the quiet light of a shorter day. It is the rest after a long fatigue, the truce that blooms within the lead, a steady hand on a trembling door, knowing what we don't need anymore. It is the calm that outlasts the storm, a simple coat to keep the spirit warm. No more hollow bells to ring, just the grace that the endings bring. The clock on the wall has lost its tick. The wick is burned, but the oil is deep. The pulse is slow and the air is thick with the promises we meant to keep. Let the maps be folded and the ink go dry. There is nothing left to justify. The garden grows in its own design, wild and green on the borderline. The soldiers have gone to their separate beds with a different kind of sky overhead. The table is set with an empty chair, but there is no ghost lingering there. Just the scent of pine and the coming frost, and the strange relief of being lost. The noise has faded into the grass. The heavy clouds are starting to pass. The bitter taste has finally gone, leaving a fear to witness. the rest after the long fatigue. The truce that blooms within the league. A steady hand on a trembling door, knowing what we don't need anymore. It is the calm that outlasts our storm, a simple coat to keep the spirit warm. Don't know how the old bells could ring, just the grace that the ending screams. The gravel crunching under worn-out soles, the rusty gate that swung on iron hinges. We wrote our names upon the telegraph poles and lived within the shadows of the fringes. The morning mist was heavy on the pond, the smell of charcoal drifting from the yard. A world of which me grew so fiercely fond, before the winter hit us twice as hard. I found a leather glove inside a crate. It smelled of oil and summer afternoon. We never thought that we would hesitate to chase the silver sliver of the moon. The radio was humming low and deep, with voices from a city far away. We had so many promises to keep in the fading light of every Saturday. The dust has settled on the windowsill. The clock is ticking, but the hands are still. We left our footprints in the cooling clay and threw the keys to all the old days. The river carries what we couldn't hold. The copper stories turning into gold. 1,000 miles since we walked away from the quiet magic of the old days. The attic holds the ghost of every year, a stack of letters tied with rotting twine. The ink is pale, but every word is clear, like water changing slowly into wine. The apple trees are gnarled and bending low. They drop their fruit for nobody to find. The seasons come and then the seasons go, and leave the heavy baggage far behind. We used to stand beneath the railway bridge to feel the thunder shake us to the bone. The sunlight dying on the purple ridge, with every valley felt just like a home. Now the maps are redrawn every day, the landmarks that we knew far torn apart. But nothing ever truly fades away when it's written on the lining of the heart. The shadows lengthen on the kitchen floor. The wind is knocking at the heavy door. The sky is turning to a shade of gray, but I can still remember how we used to play. The dust has settled on the windowsill. The clock is ticking, but the hands are still. We left our footprints in the cool and clay, and threw the keys to all the old days. The river carries what we couldn't hold. The copper stories turning into gold. 1,000 miles since we walked away from the quiet magic of the old days. The dust dust has settled on the broken friends. The ancient hounds have lost the scent. The map is torn and the ink is pale. There's no one left to tell the tale. The iron gates are swinging wide, with nothing left for us to hide. A crow is perched on a rusted plow. The wind is quiet in the bow. We traded heavy stones for seeds and turned our backs on hollow knees. The river flows without a sound, where once the thunder shook the ground. It is the calm after the spill, the movement of the standing still, a breath that does not seek along, a song that stays upon the tongue. The silver light across the floor is all we ask for and much more. The soldier wears a faded coat, a wooden splinter for a bolt. He washed the salt from out his eyes underneath the crowdless skies. The clock has stopped its heavy beat upon the stones of every street. The shadows stretch and then they fade in the hollow of the glade. The hammer rests beside the nail, beyond the reach of every gale. It is the calm after the spill, the movement of the standing still, a breath that does not sink alone, a song that stays upon the tongue. The silver light across the floor is all we ask for and much more. The dust is settled on the broken fence. The heavy iron gates are open wide. No more counting bullets for defense. No more places left for us to hide. The static on the radio has died. The silence fading into distant hills. A strange composure blooming deep inside, replacing all the fever and the chills. I saw a child playing in the rust among the skeletons of hollow cars. He didn't look for shadows in the dust or fear the coming of the evening shooting stars. He didn't bear the memory of scars, or know the names of kings who fell away beyond the reach of bitterness and bars. He owns the simple silence of a day. It's not a flag that's waving in the wind. It's not a treaty signed and faded in. It's just the quiet where the noise has sinned. A chance to finally stand still and think. The bitter cup is poured into the sink. The heavy boots are left beside the door. We're standing on a different kind of brink, where nobody is keeping up the score. The clock is ticking on the mantel shelf. The tea is getting colder in the glass. A man can finally face his inner self and watch the clouds of summer slowly pass. The dew is settling on the uncut grass. The weary earth is catching up on sleep, no longer made of stone or cold morass, but promises we finally can't keep. The valley mist is rising like a breath. The mountain peaks are glowing in the sun. We've untangled life from grip of death. The long and frantic marathon is run. The work of healing has at last begun. Without the heavy hand of constant fear, the battles that we thought had to be won dissolve into the atmosphere so clear. I walk down to a river in the light and watch the water flow into the sea. No longer looking back into the night at everything we thought we had to be. The chains are loose and everyone is free to listen to the humming of the bees beneath the shadow of the willow tree, with nothing but the shaking of the trees. It's not a flag that's waving in the wind. It's not a treaty signed and faded in. It's just the quiet where the noise has sinned. A chance to finally stand still and think. The bitter cup is poured into the sink. The heavy boots are left beside the door. We're standing on a different kind of brink, where nobody is keeping up the score. It's not a flag that's waving in the wind. It's not a treaty signed in faded ink. It's just the quiet where the noise has sinned. A chance to finally stand still and think. The bitter cup is poured into the sink. The heavy boots are left beside the door. We're standing on a different kind of brink, where nobody is keeping up the score. Dust has settled on the porch swing, where the wood is peeling back like tired skin. I found a copper coin from a dead king, deep in the pocket of a coat grown thin. The shadows stretch long across the driveway, tracing patterns that the maple leaves forgot. We used to run until the sky turned slate gray. Now I'm standing in the center of the lot. The rusted gate is humming with the north wind, a heavy sound that pulls at every bone. The ghosts of summers that we once penned are flickering like signals on a telephone. Give me back the weight of simple hours when the the clock was just a circle on the wall, before the rain could turn the garden into towers, and the distance didn't matter much at all. Oh, the ink is fading on the letter, but the meaning hasn't changed a single bit. The colder air is making everything feel better in the hollow where the lantern used to sit. Give me back the weight of simple hours, when the clock was just a circle on the wall, before the rain could turn the garden into towers, and the distance didn't matter much at all. Oh, the ink is fading on the letter, but the meaning hasn't changed a single bit. The colder air is making everything feel better in the hollow where the lantern used to sit. Creekers carved a path through the limestone, carrying the secrets of the valley to the sea. I am listening to the water on my own, thinking of the person that I used to be. There's a toolbox in the cellar gathering rust, and a bicycle with tires come soft and flat. Every memory is covered in a fine white dust, and there is no use in looking back at that. The rusted gate is humming with the north wind, a heavy sound that pulls at every bone. The ghosts of summers that we once spent are figuring like signals on a telephone. Gilded back the weight of simple hours, when the clock was just a circle on the wall, before the rain could turn the garden into towers, and the distance didn't matter much at all. Oh, the ink is fading on the leather, but the meaning hasn't changed a single bit. The colder air is making everything feel buried in the hollow where the lantern used to sit. Give me back the weight of simple hours, when the clock was just a circle on the wall, before the rain could change the garden into towers, and the distance didn't matter much at all. Oh, the ink is fading on the letter, but the meaning hasn't changed a single bit. The colder air is making everything feel better in the hollow where the lantern used to sit. Dust has settled on the porch rim, but the wood is silvered by the frost. I found a box of copper keys to every door we ever locked and lost. The garden gate is leaning sideways now, holding back the weeds of 30 years. We used to wait for the morning mail, when the ink was wet upon the page. Now the paper turns to brittle lace, showing all the yellow lines of age. The radio is humming in the hall, playing songs the static tried to kill. Shadows stretch across the kitchen floor, longer than the ones we cast before. And every crack within the ceiling tile is a map of every mile. The hairy light of yesterday is hanging in the air, like a coat that someone left upon a chair. We were climbing up the mountains just to see the rain. Now we're counting all the pennies in the drain. It was a different kind of hunger back when time was cheap. a promise that we didn't have to keep. The golden hours are bleeding into gray, walking through the ghosts of a vanished day. Your name is carved into the apple tree, but the bark has swallowed up the moss. We used to strike a match against the wind just to see the beauty of the sparks. Now the stove is cold and the kettle's dry, and the birds have traded branches for the sound. The clock is ticking but our hands don't move, like a needle stuck inside a groove. And every picture in the heavy frame is looking for a face to blame. The heavy light of yesterday is hanging in the air, like a coat that someone left upon a chair. We were climbing up the mountains just to see the rain. Now we're counting all the pennies in the drain. It was a different kind of hunger back when time was cheap, a promise that we didn't have to keep. Golden hours are bleeding into gray, walking toward the ghosts of a vanished day. Yeah. The heavy light of yesterday is hanging in the air, like a coat that someone left upon a chair. We were climbing up the mountain just to see the wane. Now we're counting all the pennies in the gun. It was a different kind of hunger back when time was cheap, a promise that we didn't have to keep. The golden hours are bleeding into gray, walking through the ghosts of a vanished The dust settles on the windowsill like gray snow. A clock counts every heartbeat I let go. The radiator hums a tune of hollow iron bone, mapping out the borders of the silence I have grown. I watch the clouds drag shadows across the kitchen floor. A heavy key turns slowly in the heavy wooden door. The coffee cools until it wears a thin and oily glaze. I am drifting through the wreckage of these pale and empty days. There is no anchor in the current of the afternoon. The light retreats to leave me with a cold and silver spoon. I reach across the table, but I only touch the air. A quiet storm is breathing in the space that used to flare. Isolation is a garment that I tailored for my frame. A quiet house that no longer remembers how to call my name. Walls are growing taller while the ceiling starts to fall. I'm standing in the center of nothingness at all. It is the heavy weight of being just a ghost among the gears. The sound of water falling through the sieve of all these years. The street lamps flicker on the stain of pavement amber glow. another day is folded like a secret never told. I count the cracks that spider through the plaster overhead, trading all my vibrant words for leaden thoughts instead. There is a hollow ringing in the wire of the soul, a broken teacup, time believe it is still whole. I pull the curtains tight to keep the evening from my sight, tethered to the gravity of my own fading light. There is no anchor in the current of the afternoon. The light retreats to leave me with a cold and silver spoon. I reach across the table, but I only touch the air. A quiet storm is breathing in the space that used to flare. Isolation is a garment that I tailor for my frame, a quiet house that no longer remembers how to call my name. The walls are growing colder while the ceiling starts to fall. I am standing in the center of nothingness at all. It is the heavy weight of peace, just a ghost among the gears, the sound of water falling through the sieve of all these years. The dust settles on a hollow chair, watching the cloud devour the air. I trade my shadow for a quiet floor. There is no palm to meet the door. A cold tea stains the wooden grain, tracing the map of a window pane. I count the pulses in my wrist, waiting for something that doesn't exist. The horizon is a tethered line, pulling away from everything mine. The stillness grows a heavy skin. Where do the walls end and I begin? This hollow weight is a heavy crown. The deeper I swim, the further I drown. No anchor to hold, no sail to tear, just the salt and the thin blue air. It is a kingdom with a single throne, carved from the marrow of a bone. The silence is a bell that will not ring while I wait for the news the seasons bring. This hollow weight is a heavy crown. The deeper I swim, the further I drown. No anchor to hold, no sail to tear, just the salt and the thin blue air. It is a kingdom with a single throne, carved from the marrow of a bone. The silence is a bell that will not ring while I wait for the news the seasons bring. I saw a coat hanging by the gate, bent like a man who learned to wait. The garden is choked with silver weeds, sown from a bag of forgotten seeds. A stray dog barks at a passing ghost. The things we keep are what haunt us most. I fold my hands like a closing book, avoiding the mirror in its hollow look. The horizon is a tethered line, pulling away from everything mine. The stiller grows a heavy skin, where do the walls end and I begin? This hollow weight is a heavy crown. The deeper I swim, the further I drown. No anchor to hold, no sail to tear, just the salt and the wind blow air. A kingdom with a single throne, carved from the marrow of the bone. The silence is a bell that will not ring while I wait for the news the seasons bring. This hollow weight is a heavy crown. The deeper I swim, the further I drown. No anchor to hold, no sail to tear, just the salt and the thin blue air. To the kingdom with a single throne, carved from the marrow of the bone. The silence is a bell that will not ring while I wait for the news the season brings. Dust settles on the windowsill like a gray blanket over a quiet hill. The clock face stares with a hollow eye, counting the minutes as they pass me by. A single shadow stretch across the floor, pointing toward the locked and heavy door. I watch the clouds through a cracked pane, waiting for a sign of the coming rain. The tea grows cold in a chip blue cup. No one is coming to fill it back up. The walls have memorized my heavy breath, a silent house that feels like a slow death. This hollow space is a kingdom I own, ruling a land made of glass and bone. The silence is a weight I have to bear, clinging to the skin and the thinning air. Nothing moves but the fading of the light, giving way to the hunger of the night. I found a letter in a tattered coat, words that sing like a heavy stone bowl. The ink is faded to a ghostly pale, telling a long and a forgotten tale. My own handwriting looks like a stranger, one in the heart of an ancient danger. The garden is choked with a tangled weed, growing from a deep and a bitter sea. The gate is rusted and the hinges bent, watching the years and the way they went. I am the only one who stays behind, within the maze of a tired and wandering mind. Oh, this hollow space is a kingdom I own, ruling a land made of glass and bone. Silence is a weight I have to bear, clinging to the skin and the thinning air. Nothing moves but the fading of the light, giving way to the hunger of the night. Dust settles on the windowsill like gray winter skin. I have been counting the cracks in the ceiling since the light grew thin. The radiator hums a flat tune that nobody requested, while the clock on the wall remains perfectly uninvested. I pour a second cup of coffee just to watch the steam die. There is a specific kind of hollow in a pale afternoon sky. The mailbox is a mouth that has forgotten how to speak. The floorboards offer a protest every time the joints get weak. It is a heavy coat you cannot take off at the door, a shadow that does not belong to the body anymore. It is the sound of a key turning in a lock that was never turned, the cold lesson at the fireplace never quite learned. It is not the absence of people, but the presence of the ghost, the quiet guest who outstays the patience of the host. The telephone is a fossil buried in the hallway down. I am waiting for a wire strike, a single accidental spark. But the air is thick with the weight of things unsaid. 1,000 unwritten letters swimming inside my head. Distance is not measured in miles or in long highway lanes. It is the space between a heartbeat and the blood in the veins. I watched a bird descend upon the frozen garden wire, a tiny spark of movement in a world that has lost its fire. It looked for a moment like it might have a message to bring, but it kept its secrets folded tightly under a shivering wing. So I turned back to the room where the shadows have grown tall, reading patterns of the dampness on the western wall. Every chair is an island in a sea of polished wood. I would change the weather of this silence if I only could. Stretches out like a long and tired hand, sifting through the hours like they were grains of desert sand. The light retreats to the corner where the memories reside. Nowhere left for the restless mind to effectively hide. It is a heavy coat you cannot take off at the door, a saddle that does not belong to the body anymore. It is the sound of a key turning in a lock that was never turned, the cold lesson at the fireplace never quite learned. It is not the absence of people, but the presence of the ghost, the quiet guest who outstays the patience of the host. It is a heavy coat you cannot take off at the door, a shadow that does not belong to the body anymore. It is the sound of a key turning in a note that was never turned, the cold lesson at the fireplace never quite learned. It is not the absence of... The dust settles on the windowsill. A clock keeps its distance on the wall. I walk across the floorboards until the shadows stretch and start to crawl. My coffee turns to ice within the cup. The silence is a heavy velvet shroud. I try to pick the broken pieces up without a single word aloud. This hollow space where no one calls my name, a map of empty chairs and locked glass doors, the flickering of an isolated flame upon these cold and solitary floors. The weight of being only one underneath a pale and distant sun. This hollow space where no one calls my name, a map of empty chairs and locked glass doors, the flickering of an isolated flame upon these cold and solitary floors. The weight of being only one underneath a pale and distant sun. Crowds move like ghosts through the busy street. Voices blend into a gray vibration. I find no solace in my people that I meet, just a long and quiet hibernation. The mirror reflects a stranger in the hall, waiting for a knock that never comes at all. I watch the stars align in patterns I forget. The evening air is thin and hard to breathe. The moon is just a silver silhouette with nothing left to give or to receive. I fold my hands against the cooling night, learning how to live without the light. This hollow space where no one calls my name, a map of empty chairs and locked glass doors, the flickering of an isolated flame upon these cold and solitary floors. The weight of being only one underneath a pale and distant sun. This hollow space where no one calls my name, a map of empty chairs and locked glass doors, the flickering of an isolated flame upon these cold and solitary floors. The weight of being only one underneath a pale and distant sun. The dust settles on the windowsill, a hollow space where the clock stands still. I watch the shadows crawl across the floor, counting steps toward a locked door. The tea has long since turned to ice. I pay the toll and I pay the price. There is a weight in the empty chair a heavy ghost in the stagnant air. The telephone is a silent stone, a king sitting on a fractured throne. I write my name on the frosted glass, waiting for the winter chill to pass. It is a vast and a pathless map, a quiet falling into a trap, the sound of one hand reaching out in the middle of a wordless doubt. It is the anchor without a chain, walking through the steady gray rain, a slow drift in a wide deep blue, searching for a single point of view. The walls are moving inch by inch, the spirit feels a sudden pinch. No one to catch the falling light, no one to witness the long night, just the steady pulse of a lonely vein, trying to hum a soft refrain. With a pale face, leaving behind not a single trace. I fold the blankets and I smooth the sheets, far from the noise of the crowded streets. The mirror offers a stranger's gaze, lost in a thick and silver haze. I take my coffee in a cracked white cup, waiting for the sun to finally wake up. The mail is nothing but a blank receipt, a quiet surrender and a soft defeat. I build a fortress out of old magazines, living inside of a skipped over scene. It is a vast and a pathless map, a quiet falling into a trap, the sound of one hand reaching out in the middle of a wordless doubt. It is the anchor without a chain, walking through the steady gray rain, a slow drifting